Welcome to the WTR Small-Cap Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Tim Gerdeman, Vice Chair and Co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer of Water Tower Research. In today's podcast episode, I'm being joined by Ben Richardson, Chief Executive Officer of Sulnox, OTC ticker symbol SNOXF. Sulnox Group is a green tech company focused on trying to solve a global problem: how to reduce emissions and fuel consumption immediately without expensive retrofits or new infrastructure. The company's patented 100% organic fuel conditioner improves how traditional fuels burn, helping all combustion engines cut fuel costs and significantly reduce emissions with a simple drop-in solution. Also joining us is my WTR Equity Research colleague, Peter Gastreich. Good morning, Ben and Peter, and thanks for joining today's podcast.
Good morning, Tim. A pleasure to be part of this podcast.
Ben, for those listeners who may not be familiar with Sulnox, would you please provide our podcast audience with a high-level overview of the company and its corporate strategy? And also, I always like to ask all of our guests to provide a quick overview of their professional backgrounds.
Okay, sure. So I'm an ex-banker. I spent about 16 years with Deutsche Bank, where I was the Chief Operating Officer within risk management as part of the investment bank. And I actually spent my financial crisis in New York City. So very much a part of the furniture in the States. I joined Sulnox as a non-executive about 5 years ago, having taken what was then an unbranded product to my local garage for emissions testing on a car, and quickly discovered that the product could dramatically reduce both greenhouse gases and the particulate matter that you see coming out of exhausts. And ever since then, I've been running the company, and the company's strategy is to be that energy transition solution that you mentioned. We have a product which is able to improve combustion of all liquid hydrocarbons. So anything from the gasoline you put in your car, the diesel that's used in haulage and freight, the marine fuels, and anything like heating oil and even aviation fuels. We're able to improve combustion of those. And when you improve combustion, you dramatically reduce the fuel consumption. And we're talking anywhere from 5 to 15% reduction. And therefore, it's a product which is applicable to every combustion engine on the planet, or if you like, as much as 70% of every barrel of oil.
That's great. I appreciate that overview. That's a huge total addressable market, to state the obvious. So very exciting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Peter to ask a few questions.
Hey, thanks, Tim. So Ben, if we put Sulnox emulsification technology next to traditional fuel additives, what are the main differences? And also, how would you quantify the main advantages for your customers in terms of combustion efficiency, which you mentioned, or emissions control, engine maintenance, or any other metric that you think is important here?
Yeah, well, if we take your first question, how does Sulnox differ from traditional additives? If you look at the chemistry behind a traditional additive, you'll often see they are waste fossil fuel components or cetane boosters. So if you look at in detail, it's substances like naphthalene or xylene, which work like adding lighter fluid to a barbecue to make the flame burn bright and hot. They're often also have metal or metal oxides in them to improve that combustion. Sulnox is very different. We are a patented solution because our chemistry is clever, as you mentioned, based on emulsification. So we take small amounts of water that we find in the fuel. There's always water allowed by regulation or through condensation. And we use that water to our advantage to vaporize the large fuel particles into smaller particles. And when you do that, the smaller particles burn more completely. So we have a unique system which is called secondary atomization, which means more of the fuel burns completely. So if you like, the potential energy in the fuel goes to useful energy, which means you get those fuel savings. But as you also mentioned, the chemistry is rather clever in the fact that we have substances which add lubricity and they add detergency. Now, lubricity is important because as the sulfur content in fuel has reduced, this means that the fuel has become drier. And our natural ingredients add as much as 20% lubricity to improve all of the working parts by reducing friction. And then the detergency means that all the components in an engine are cleaner, so your injectors are spraying fuel more effectively. And it's really this clever package of improving combustion and adding lubricity and detergency, which together make these fuel savings and emission reductions.
Well, it looks like Sulnox could reduce fuel consumption and emissions across several industries. How should we think about the size of addressable market for your product? And within that, maybe you could talk about the relevant, regulatory trends that are driving adoption across some of those different sectors and geographies.
Yes, sure. So as Tim's pointed out, it's a huge addressable market. It's every liquid hydrocarbon fuel across the planet, so every combustion engine on the planet. So if we look at where we're focused today, much of our revenue comes from the marine sector, where they use heavy sulfur fuel oils as well as very low sulfur fuel oils and marine gas oil. And Sulnox is able to reduce that consumption around 5%. And this is 5% of what is actually around 5% of the global oil consumption. And if I give you an example, a single vessel, a container ship burning maybe 100 tons of fuel a day, the size of the Empire State Building, to give you a concept, that can save about $1 million in fuel by using the product per annum. And today's regulations are actually geared to looking at fuel consumption, but our products actually dramatically reduce CO2 and nitrous oxides as much as 20%, as well as removing that black smoke almost completely. So that black smoke is just unburnt fuel. So as the regulations come in, they're more and more stringent, trying to reduce emissions. And what Sulnox has got is a product that works not only in the marine sector, but in every gas station, every generator. And that's in a huge market, increasing with data centers, but also logistics and freight and mining and defense. So it really is a vast market that we're only just scratching the surface of now. And in terms of the regulatory trend, this is a product for today. It's a product that can reduce consumption to help companies meet ESG targets, reduce CO2 and other greenhouse gases 20% overnight. So actually able to achieve ESG goals immediately. And therefore, it's such a product for the now.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So I understand that Sulnox products are patented in over 50 countries and you're manufactured globally. What are the strategic considerations for entering various markets? I can imagine that big markets reliant on fuel imports like China would be huge beneficiaries of your products, but I suspect you have some intellectual property risks that you need to manage there, for example.
Yeah, well, if we take China as an example, we actually have the Chinese patent. So it's been investigated and we've proven that it's not an easy patent to replicate. But also in the patent, there's lots of future potential. So we actually have products that are able to work with biofuels. And this is probably the next generation of what we'll see in terms of fuel. It's estimated that biofuels will still make up about 30% of the world's fuel consumption in 2050. And biofuels have all sorts of issues with attracting water and being unstable. Again, things that an emulsifier can deal with, getting rid of the water, stopping the water from settling out and causing issues with bacterial fungal growth. So I think, though, and what we're doing is we're finding the right partners in these vast markets, and that's key. Finding the right distributors who you can work with, who know the landscape in their local countries. If we look at the States, we had to get EPA approval, which we've got, and there are various other regulations like the ASTM regulation. So when you go to the gas station, each fuel that you put in your car will be ASTM approved. We've had to prove all over the world that our fuel dosed with Sulnox doesn't take the fuel outside of specification. So it's very key to have local knowledge. And we can never replicate those networks that local distributors sell into. So finding the right partners who are able to buy the product and distribute at scale is what we're all about. And if you have partners who are willing to do the sales for you, it also keeps our costs low at the same time.
Something that has surprised investors so far this year has been a lot of companies that have been starting to monetize, carbon. It's come in a lot quicker than people have expected. I'm curious, how does Sulnox approach carbon credits and financial incentives, and what role do these incentives play in encouraging adoption among refineries, shipping companies, and governments?
Yeah, well, it's twofold. So we've got the regulatory demands that things like in marine, where you have the European ETS tax. So for every a ton of carbon emitted, you're actually charged a regulatory tax. And these we can help by simply reducing the consumption of fuel, and that will associate with having to pay less regulatory tax. But there's also the voluntary market. And I'm pleased to say that we've engaged with carbon credit specialists to try and transform what is a tremendous fuel saving, that 5 to 15% fuel saving I mentioned, and all those CO2 and other greenhouse gas reductions, around 20%, into carbon credits. And we think that this is going to be a real differentiator when it comes to using our products. So not only are customers saving on their fuel consumption, but they also benefit from reductions in their emissions, for which they'll get a financial reward as well. So I think, yes, this is something that's going to really transform the Sulnox marketplace into really huge growth, because the financial reward for those that emit less can be recognized with these credits as well.
That's great. It sounds like a win-win all around there. So the business model at Sulnox appears to be very scalable in terms of manufacturing and distribution. How do you envision growing the business and achieving profitability? I'd also be interested what you view as the biggest operational and financial challenges as well.
Well, we've partnered with a large specialty chemical company called Nourian. They're actually owned by Carlyle Group. So to your point, yes, there's no constraints on where we can make the product, and we can make it at scale, because the natural ingredients are very available across the planet. What I can say is that we're looking now to manufacture the product in the States as well. So there's a huge opportunity, as you say, across all of those different sectors that, as I mentioned, so many combustion engines across the planet. And what we're actually trying to do now is hire the right core group in Sulnox to support those distributors I just mentioned, and those introducers across the world. There really is no issue to growing almost exponentially. What we've got is a consumable product, so every revenue is actually compounding in its nature. If we talk about the path to profitability, well, we've had 3 record quarters back to back, and the last quarter was actually up 30% on the previous one. But I don't see that the Sulnox growth will be linear. I see there will be step changes, and those come from finding those right partners across the world to grow. In terms of the operational challenges, well, it's really about already we have too much demand and too many customers. So it's trying to keep everybody who wants to buy the product or try the product across the planet able to do so with a skeleton staff that we will try and maintain to keep costs low at the core.
Okay, that's great. There's a question I'd like to give the opportunity of all of our podcast guests to answer, and that is, what do you think analysts and investors most misunderstand or get wrong about your company's strategy or overall outlook?
Well, I think the biggest mistake is that people think because they have an electric car that we are decarbonizing. When you look across the globe, the majority of the world is still burning fossil fuels, and peak oil is not coming to 2040. So we've got a long time of increased fossil fuel use, and therefore the products will be around and very necessary for the longest time. But also a common misconception, and one that was amazing to me, is that people simply don't monitor and manage their fuel well. Trying to get good fuel consumption data from marine vessels or even haulage vehicles is actually quite a challenge. So whilst we have a fantastic product that's proven many times across all combustion engines, it's not always easy to prove the effectiveness just through the variability in consumption. So the speed of adoption is therefore a little slower than you might anticipate, given the product's ability to reduce fuel and emissions. But I think that as the regulations are coming in, though, and the need to reduce consumption is coming to the fore, this is now becoming easier. And also the improvement in telematics to monitor fuel consumption is also making our lives a lot easier. Then there's the scale of the market. The reality is that 30 gas stations can make $1 million in profit for the company, and so it doesn't really take much to push this company into significant profit, especially as we're looking to keep costs low as a core group.
Okay, thanks for setting that straight there, Ben. Sort of looking forward, maybe over the next 12 to 18 months, what are the key signposts that you would like to mention for investors?
Well, as I mentioned, the company's growing very fast with our record revenues in the last couple of quarters. What we will see, though, is the patents will continue across not just our existing Sulnox Eco that reduces fuel consumption and emissions, but also we have other projects in the pipeline, like our oil reclamation product, which is able to separate oil and water and, if you like, recycle oil far better than current processes. And that itself is a $2 billion market. But we've got a huge opportunity and a tremendous pipeline. If I look at marine alone, we're engaged with 75 shipping companies and with fleet sizes of around 6,000 vessels. And to put that into context, if we get 5% of just the Greek shipping market, which is about 20% of the global shipping market, we're looking at 200 million in revenue. So with a multiplier of 5, it takes us to $1 billion company. So there really is just a tremendous momentum now in the shipping space. And I'm just talking about I'm not just talking about the largest ships that tankers, containers, and bulkers. There's also the cruise sector, which is desperate to reduce the black smoke that we see in the ports, and also obviously save on fuel consumption. But excitingly, there's the whole of the opportunity on land, and pleased to say we've just hired a head of sales to help drive those opportunities in logistics, in locomotives, in generators, and mining, as well as the fuel stations. So it really is a company that can grow massively in every geography and across every large consumer of fossil fuel.
Okay, this is great. So thank you so much, Ben, for taking the time to join us today and sharing your insights. From what I've heard here, Sulnox is delivering immediate cost savings to your customers, which means in most senses you can almost really stop there in terms of what makes this convincing. You've also have big environmental benefits related to CO2 and particulate emissions, and with that next to zero capital investment for customers. So this really looks like a win-win technology all around, and we'll look forward to following your commercial rollout from here with great interest. But before I pass on to back to Tim, would you like to provide any concluding remarks?
Well, no, just that I'm obviously very proud of what we've achieved in the last couple of years. We've now got testimonials across many countries and many sectors. It really is the right product at the right time to address the energy transition, being really a solution that requires no capital expenditure, no modification to any engine, and yet has the ability with our CO2 reductions and other greenhouse gas and particulate reductions to really help companies meet their ESG goals and get to net zero overnight. So truly excited to be able to speak to you today, and I hope your audience also appreciates the great opportunity that Sulnox can offer.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Back to you, Tim.
Thanks, Peter. Ben is a former Wall Street chemical industry analyst. I have great appreciation for this story. And, I genuinely, when I mentioned that the total addressable market is huge, I just crunched some numbers on the back of a piece of paper. I mean, it's significant. So it's a very exciting story, and wish you the best. And thanks for your time today.
It's been great to chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, as well as visiting www.watertowerresearch.com to stay up to speed on the company's small cap written research reports, podcasts, fireside chats, industry-specific symposiums, and conference schedules. We will see you next time for another edition of the WTR Small Cap Spotlight podcast. Finally, a special thanks to the producer and editor of the podcast, Krista Fitzpatrick.